And welcome to another show. Don't get this twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm good, Rob. How you doing?
Oh, not too shabby. You sound amazing today. Your microphone is on point. On point.
Yeah, I'm awake. Good. You know, it's like not first thing in the morning and a little bit awake. I've been busy all day, so I've been on the go, getting ready to go again.
That's good though.
That's good.
So
yeah.
And again, awake. I mean, I'm awake, but I don't know. I'm gonna sleep like a brick tonight for sure. I was all over the place today. On that.
I was wide awake at 4:30 in the morning, and that's like, it's more common for me to go to bed at that time than it is to wake up at that time. Yeah, not a good day. It's been kind of hard.
I'd love to tell you that that's hard for me, but it's not hard for me anymore. 4:30 is like, if 4:30 is sleeping in, my alarm goes off at 4. So. Yeah, it's crazy
about it.
So before we get too deep and into our lovely subject for this week, make sure to hit our socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. And make sure to check us out on everywhere you can hear podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and a bunch of other ones. Because holy moly, there's a bunch. This week, we're going to hit some of our fans' choices, because they're always sending in stuff to me, thank goodness, and it's keeping us going with newer stuff, even though we have a list of like 60 or so shows that we still haven't done, so which is really good. So this one was on traditionalism and where did it go? And I was like, oh, you know, traditionalism, as at least the way I took it, was more, because I know the person who told me, she's definitely more of that old school mentality of like men's roles and females roles and things that of that nature. Because I think she's somewhere in the ballpark of our age group. I think she's like, how old's Teddy?
He'll be 50 this year.
Okay, so she's younger than that, but I think I'll be 52. I think she's 4 years younger than me. So, but definitely in our age range. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the definition of traditionalism. It's the adherence to the doctrines or practices of a tradition, or beliefs that of those opposed to modernism, liberalism, and radicalism, which I would probably go with. That is pretty spot on, because obviously modernism, they don't look at the roles of things like that anymore. Because, you know, traditional, mostly if you look at how movies were in the probably 50s, 60s, before the hippie generation, it was definitely a different thing. Like, women and men had more gender roles.
More Leave It to Beaver.
More Leave It to Beaver. I mean, and obviously we all know that Leave It to Beaver wasn't really what was going on, but it was probably a very close facsimile of that. Mm-hmm. You know, moms did stay at home and had dinner ready when their husband got home. And I think, you know, modern feminism probably ruined some of that. Mostly in the probably late 80s, early 90s is when that really kind of got the ball rolling. But it was, and I hate to say a simpler time, because it probably wasn't if you lived during that time. Mm-hmm. You know, we think it was, but it was where mom stayed at home and raised the kids and dad went to work. And there was a gender role. And I'm sure that they probably intertwined a little bit. You know, it wasn't just like, you know, look, if the dishes needed to be done, I'm sure the husband would do them. Or to the point where I would say more modern traditionalism, where yes, there is something to that, but I think that it's definitely a lost art, mostly when it comes to like dating. You know, we were kind of talking before we got on here, and I'm kind of a wacko when it comes to open up the door for someone I take out, or if I'm dating at the time. I actually had a girl that I was dating at one point that thought it was just bizarre. She's like, you don't have to do that. And I was like, I know I don't have to. This isn't a have to thing. It's that I want to. Mm-hmm. And I do it for a lot of different reasons. I do it because I just think that it's a gentleman thing to do.
I agree.
I also like that it's a safety thing for me. You know, when I put someone in the car, I want them to lock the doors until I'm on the other side. Then it keeps, because from a safety issue, that's what generally happens. People open up unlocked doors. And that's how bad things happen. So I like to know that when I put someone in the car, that door is locked. And until I get in on the other side, no one's going to get into them or her, assuming it's either a date or family. You put your kids in the car and you put your woman in the front seat and you have her lock the door. If you're walking around, you still have a fighting chance of no one getting to your family. Mm-hmm. So, or your date, whatever, you know, however you want to put it. So that's why I do it. On the other side of just being, I think that it's the gentleman thing to do. That's how I was raised. Mm-hmm. But I think more modern people don't see that at all. I don't see young people, couples, you know, if you're out and about, watch them go to the car. It never happens. They pick a side, get in the car and drive off.
Yeah, I don't know, because my ex used to do that for me. As a matter of fact, if we go somewhere together, he still does that for me. It's always been that way. It will always be that way. But I think we both have similar beliefs, and also for me, it's required or it's expected. It's like, if you want me to treat you well, you treat me well. And that's part of the give and take of a relationship. Mm-hmm. But I was also raised that men walk on the inside of the street, or the outside of the street closest to the curb. Mm-hmm. I was also raised that they get more catered to, like you should have dinner done when they get home. Not sure. That my ex, I don't think he cared one way or another, but it bothered me if I didn't. Mm-hmm. But that's more of how I was raised than anything, for sure.
And that's probably because you came out of a more traditional family.
Mm-hmm. I did.
So, you know, I
but
came
my
out
dad
of,
also cooked. He cooked most nights after I was like 10. He had made, mom was saying something about the way she cooked, and my dad said, well, I could do it better. And that was it. She bought him a microwave, went back to school, and he was stuck doing dinners for the rest of their relationship. So he also did laundry. Like he did whatever. He didn't, and he changed diapers, you know, so.
Your mom just suckered him.
Oh yeah, she rolled it, but literally. But he was that way. Like, he doesn't care if he goes to the grocery store, hey, do you need anything? And he doesn't write it down. He remembers it, goes to the store and brings it back for you. You know, it's he's always kind of been like that. So I saw both ways where men could cater to the woman as well as the women cater to the man. And it just, I think what I learned is that you need to work together. So whatever needs to be done, you just do it.
Sure. But I think within traditionalism, look, I have friends that like cooking wise. And I hate to say this because it's kind of like this like trope thing, but I have a friend who the meat is cooked by him and she does the rest of the stuff in the kitchen, which I think is kind of an old school, like mostly like barbecue thing, like the men barbecue, and the wife would cook the rest of the stuff inside the house, with the exception of like, you know, turkey dinner. You know, the wife would cook Thanksgiving dinner, or, you know, the trope of like the roast beef, you know, the roast cooking in the oven, even though most of us cook in a slow cooker now, or you know, a pressure cooker. But my buddy still to this day, he barbecues all the meat, all of it. And I've been there, and regardless of what it is, hamburgers, he does it. She'll cut the fixings. If he's cooking steak, she's making the rest of it. Now,
that was my life too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's probably something that's fairly common, just because, the men in their barbecue and their little flipper or their tool to do their thing. And I think it was more of a thing of like, maybe he could stand outside and they could bullshit through the window and he could have a beer or whatever. I think there's a lot of tradition to that, where it's not that you're being separate. You're just doing things to help, but that man wanted to have that meat cooked because obviously he could cook it better, which, obviously we know isn't true, but there is something to that. And I think that those are the things that have to come back. Like, I think that those are special things, mostly if you have a big family.
Working together, it definitely needs to make a comeback.
Well, but I mean, just those traditions of like, so the man barbecues, but there's something about like, maybe you're having a get together and he's out by the barbecue and all the friends and family and you and your girl are walking back and forth with each other. And like, I don't know, I saw it with my dad. My dad cooked the meat and my stepmom was always in the kitchen, doing the fixins or whatever, cooking beans or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But my dad would always walk in and they would do things together and he'd walk back out and she'd come out. And when it was time to, get the meat off the barbecue, she'd come out with the foil on the cookie sheet. And so there was that, but it was a tradition of like how things were to me. Like, that's how I remember things, that those are traditions that I think are just missing. And maybe I'm off on young people. I don't know. I should ask, the people around me that have older kids, because maybe some of those families are traditional because they come from that. And I think that's the only way to do it. But modern things, I don't think that there's anything like that. I bet you it's very common that one does it all or a lot of eating out. I know a lot of people that don't even cook at home, which is, again, another tradition. I know people who literally more than probably 3 times a week order food in. To this day, out of 7 days, more than maybe 3 days a week they cook at home, maybe. Because I was talking to one of the guys in my work and he was like, oh yeah, we just Uber Eats. Like, you don't cook? And he's like, nah. It's like, wow. Like, to me, and I know that there's living arrangements that might make that difficult. So I don't want to say that it's just like there are a couple in their own
when
house.
You're coaching Little League or something and you're out 3-4 nights a week late.
Yeah.
That's an excuse, but that shouldn't be a rule.
Yeah. This one is more that they live with mother-in-law and there's other things involved, which, but to still not do it is weird to me. Like, I mean, I lived with someone for 8 years that was just a roommate and I went home and cooked every day, or tried to cook as much as I could. So I still tried to make a traditional household that my son saw. Dad came home, dad cooked dinner. We ate at the kitchen table. Like, we still did things like that. And I think that those are traditions that are dying out. The kitchen table, I'm sure, is definitely dying out. Because now kids just pick up their food and take it to the room and become a hermit. Or
we had to eat at the kitchen table. Everybody had to.
I remember my cousins.
We didn't have to ask to get up from the table though, but we had to eat at the table. And my dad seemed to always leave first because of inappropriate conversation he didn't want to be a part of. I mean, that was nightly.
Me growing up, it was me and my dad and my brother. We ate at the kitchen table. And when dinner was done, we, got away from the table. But we didn't until dinner was done.
Yeah. Growing
up around, like when I was much younger, like going to Thanksgiving dinner at my cousin's house was barbaric. Like my uncle who's passed away, he used to literally put the belt on the table. Like it was, oh yeah. Like you had to at least try shit on your plate. If you didn't, there was hell to pay. Like my cousins to this day, I'm sure.
I think that you should try stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to eat it if you don't like it, but you should at least try.
And that's all they had to do. They just had to taste it. And if they didn't like it, they were great. But literally there was many a time with a belt on the table. So there's a tradition too. I remember that to this day, like, holy crap, man, my uncle was serious. And then, like, I make jokes to my cousins to this day, and they're close in age to us. And they're just like, oh yeah, it was crazy. It's just like they were scared shitless of their dad.
Wow.
Yeah. But again, these are traditions that I think go along everyone. Like, I don't know where it ended, because obviously we're 80s babies and it was still tradition then. When I was married, we ate at the kitchen table. So, but again, I think it's because of us, our parents put into our head, and maybe my son will go on to do the same thing. I don't know, but I think it's going to be harder because the roles are just different now. They don't look at it the same way. And I don't know why.
Well, because every generation poo-poos the one before it. That's part of it. And also, we don't have dads around anymore, like we once did.
Yeah, so that's true.
The less dads that are around, the less reasons there are to sit at a table, So I think that's also part of it.
That's sad. I remember even with my boy, we would talk about life things like,
oh yeah,
what was going on at school? So like those were family traditions, and within the family scope of things. And you're right, mom, dad, kids at the table doing their stuff. But I was a single parent. I still did it. But I think that now, and again, maybe it's just this generation is so separate from their parents that their parents have given them so much freedom that now they just take it all. Like, they'll pick up their shit, go to their room, eat it, bring the dishes back, throw them in the sink, and leave.
And nobody had any interaction with them either.
Yeah. I mean, my kid will do that sometimes. He'll still do that. But not, I do my best to have dinner with him all the time, because I think it's an important part. That's tradition to keep your relationship strong.
Yeah. My niece and nephew, they're very quiet. Like, they just don't talk. And so when I'm here, when my dad does Wednesday dinners with them, if I'm here, I'm like, so what's happening? And I force them, like I used to you, to talk with me. And I don't care if we're shooting the shit, like as far as just making fun of each other, I don't care, but there needs to be some sort of communication. And I'll even say, well, guys, I'm sitting here for the next hour and a half. You could either use this time with me or lose it. Like, right. What do you want? And they're like, well, what do you want to talk about? And then, it's like pulling teeth, to be honest with you, but I do it every time I get a chance, because one of these days they're going to turn into adults, and I want to be able to have somebody I could talk to. I don't want them to think I don't care either. But they hate it. They hate it.
So do you think the tradition of like opening doors for people, or do you think that it'll just go away?
Well, if we don't put a priority on it, if we don't say that it's important, if we don't teach our kids, it's definitely going to go away. But even I have a cousin that's in his mid-30s, and he said he learned all that from me, because at a very early age, these kids were born when I was like 15, 16 years old. They were always with me. I had twin cousins, and I always told them from little tiny kids, you got to do this and you got to do that. And that's, walking down the street, we did it together. Even if they were like 5, 6, 7 years old, I made them walk on the outside, and they held my hand, and they opened the door for my grandmother. And my cousin told me, he goes, I learned all that because of you. It wasn't, he gave me that credit. I was grateful that I taught him, but at the same time, I'm like, wait a minute, that came from me. It didn't come from grandma or your mom or my mom, or, it was important to me because I guess I was dating at the time, and it was important then, and they learned it.
Yeah. And I think with things like that, they become belief systems, right? So, and they become embedded in you. You're you're
what type of man are you? I would say, are you a man that will show up, or are you going to be one of these losers that doesn't count? Like, I used to tell them stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, but it,
I put that in my son's head all the time. Provider, protector. Mm-hmm. That's your job as a man.
Yeah. And it's sexy. It is sexy. Like, if somebody wants to do that for me, it's very hard because I'm stupid independent. I'm by myself all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't think of what I'm doing, but I've been told don't touch the door. Like, he gave me 3 warnings, like, don't touch the door. You don't need to get your hands dirty. He said it like 3 different ways. I remember don't touch the door, though. The final time he's like, look, don't open the door again, or I'm going to take you home. And I'm like, wow, you're really serious about that? He's like, yeah, I am. Yeah. Guess what? I didn't touch the door. I didn't. Well, and it wasn't that I didn't want him to. I'm so used to doing it for myself. But now I'll wait. Like, he taught me. I mean,
I mean, some of these traditions I think are obviously have been handed down for long times. I was going to say, like, you're Native American, and obviously tradition within that community is massively huge. It's kind of the same as I would say probably faith-based religions like being Christian.
Yeah, but in that company, they wouldn't say that I was traditional at all.
In Native?
Yeah.
Well, that's true, because you didn't grow up in that hardcore part of that. I agree. Mm-hmm. Well, I was more trying to say, though, that there's traditions within all these different things. Obviously, Native Americans have tons. The Christian religion have lots of things within that, and those things are what becomes traditionalism within whatever your social construct is. So, and not that you need either of those type of things to be a traditionalist, but those definitely help with things. And I think that those help with societal things. A lot of the things that we think about today are based on tradition of 200 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they've just been handed down. And now, if you look at the definition where it's more says like liberalism, they're taking away those traditions for whatever reason. And people are fighting for those traditions because I think that they're important. Some of them are very, very important. So how do we, because, I hate to sound like the crazy person, but the school system is definitely not going down traditional routes when it comes to a lot of things. I sent you a video the other day with this guy showing, and I want to say high school students, a clock.
Oh God.
They could not tell time.
Right. They couldn't
tell
like
time.
on a manual clock.
On a manual clock. Yeah. Obviously with a digital clock, most can because it's on their phone. Mm-hmm. But that's what we've got away from traditions like that, or cursive. Like, they don't teach kids cursive anymore. And for whatever reason, like, they're not going to be able to read documents that were done by anyone in the past, which is scary to me that they're taking away such traditions of being able to write. I had to teach my kid how to sign his name because he learned cursive early, but he was in school when they cut that shit off. So
really?
He didn't. Oh yeah. He didn't
get that.
He learned a little bit of cursive. But I think, by junior high, they were done with that and everything was print. So I had to teach him, like, hey, this is what you need to do. And he was like, well, why do I need to learn how to do my signature? And then I had to sit down and tell him the reality of that. Like, if you ever buy anything, you're going to have to sign it over and over and over again, like a house or a car. And I go, it's not just like, you have to have something. So these are traditions that I think is leaving. And then the traditionalism of just the family unit. The family unit is dying. And for whatever reason, they're pushing that away. Like, it's something that we shouldn't do, which is fucking bizarre to me. Like, these are the things that are staples of humans. And I want to say it's more American traditionalism, because if you take if you take these same thoughts to other countries, they're much more, gender roles are very strict. Having a family, very strict, mm-hmm. there's not some countries, divorce is hard to do. You don't just go down to the courthouse and be like, want a divorce. And they're like, no, that's not how that shit works. Mm-hmm. You and your man need to fix this shit and do it. So I think from the standpoint of where my friend was coming from, I think it's deteriorating at such a rate that people that she's met, or been hit on by, have no clue of what that would be like. Or another friend of mine, she was kind of telling me the same thing, where guys just have no fucking clue anymore. And I think that they've even taken it out of our brains, my age and a little bit younger, in their 40s, where they've been hammered so hard by independent women that now they don't give a shit to be traditional. Mm-hmm. And that's,
well, there's no value in it. If you get told as a man that shit doesn't matter, which is literally what women have said, mm-hmm. why would they do it? Right. And I have a friend that I talk to quite often, and he's always apologizing for like what he says. And I was like, look, if you're lying, apologize. Other than that, just say whatever the hell it is you need to say, but quit apologizing for it. Own it. I'm okay with you owning your opinions, your beliefs, mm-hmm. your whatever. And I want to hear that. I don't want to hear your apologies before you say something, and then you go ahead and say it anyway. So you're really not apologizing. You're just saying, please don't be offended. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be offended. I want to laugh at whatever the hell you got coming out of your mouth. So just say it. And I feel bad because he's actually said, I have been told because I am who I am that it's wrong, or I shouldn't do mm-hmm. it, or I shouldn't say it. I'm like, that will never be me. Please be wrong. If that's the case, be wrong all the time, because I need a person to be them. And I love a man that could be kind of cocky and says what's on his mind and owns his shit. If you could own your shit, say whatever you want to say, but right. Make sure you own it. Don't be wishy-washy, because I need consistency. But since when do you need to say the right thing for somebody to like you? It's crazy to me. And I want to like people because they have an opinion. And if they're an asshole, I know they're an asshole, but mm-hmm. I could still be cool with them. It's not I don't know. It's just so different from me because I was raised very differently. And even though men were kind of treated, they could be treated bad by the women in my family, they were a little rough on the men, mm-hmm. and the men were more passive. There is still that level of respect and decency and, working together. So for me, it's please just be normal. Please just be normal. Whoever you are, just come that way. I'm okay.
Right. Do you think women today, and I mean the spectrum, so our age and back, because obviously anything before us, if you're not traditional, you can probably fuck off. The women who are in their 60s and 70s that are still meeting men, if you're not traditional, you probably are screwed. You'll in that dating scene. But do you think women, and I think on a more level of the bell curve, because we like to use that bell curve here at Don't Get This Twisted. Do you think on the bell curve, most women want traditional?
I don't know that I could say most women. I could say that there's definitely a population that does, but then there's another population that has absolutely no respect for it and doesn't care one way or another.
Damn. That kind of hurts me, because I am more of that traditional, hopeless romantic,
but here's the deal. If you put value into that and you're with somebody that doesn't, you won't stay with them. You'll find somebody that puts value in that because it can't work any other way. So, and there are people that are out there that do, I really hold that in high regard. I do. And people that don't have it, I don't have the same level of respect. And if you don't have that same level of respect, you're definitely not going to be able to take it as far, take the relationship or whatever as far as you could, because it's a difference of belief systems. I think the younger the person is, I think the less they care about that. But it's also the way they were raised versus the way that the older generations were. My parents were both there. That right there changes everything.
I kind of agree with you. I think in the end, fortunately, if you're looking for that, you will weed out people in the dating process.
Absolutely.
So it shouldn't be too hard in the beginning. And you'll like I said before, and I've said 100 times, if only people change when they want to. So you can't change somebody. You can't make somebody a gentleman. They're either going to be one or they're not, or they're going to have traditional beliefs or they're not. So you can't change that.
Same thing for women.
Right. I mean, yes, but I'm kind of using you as an example for now. But you're right. I think that I'm looking for something, and most men are looking for something. There's a middle ground when it comes to traditional standards and what you're looking for. And generally you'll weed them out quite early in the dating process or real talks during the dating process. Because the first couple of dates can end up being nonsense anyway. We're on our best behavior. You're wearing the best clothes you can. You're trying to, look and smell the best you can. There's a lot of things in the dating process that we talked about last week with, take them to the camp out. Then you'll get the real person generally, but real conversations within that dating process. Well, you can weed someone out fairly quickly because there's certain points that you're looking for if you're looking for that traditional. Where if you say something to somebody and they're going to give you an answer that's going to either step back or move you forward. So, but I think finding that within the dating process is probably very hard. Because it's not like it's something that you're putting on your profile, your dating profile that you're a traditionalist and you're looking for that. So I think it's a scary thing to going forward with how people are going to be 20 years from now. I think it's going to be a lost art. Well,
think about it. This generation's either going to realize that their way is the right way or the wrong way. And they'll, the next generation's going to go a different direction with that, and it'll come back around. Everything does. It's like, clothes we wore in the 80s that we all got rid of. Now they're back around, Right. So I think that if this generation puts any sort of value into the family system because they didn't have it, then they'll make changes and they'll go with when times were different and families were more abundant, and they'll learn from that. Or at least I hope so. I mean,
yeah, me too.
We should be able to learn from things that we've done wrong. We should learn from people that have done things wrong. We should learn from our own interactions with people or our own families, and then make changes to be better and change it. My mom always said, if you don't like the way I'm raising you, do something different. It's up to you at that point. So you have to fix what you feel was broken and keep what worked. And hopefully, at some point, a family will come back around, because it's definitely necessary for kids to survive. They need it. Right. So I'm hoping that the generation that comes up next goes, wait a minute, men aren't pigs and assholes, and they should be held more accountable, and they should be able to show up and be dads, without all the shit that everybody gives them. So hopefully, it'll come back around and there will be more of a balance. It's just it's so polar opposite that it really shows right now.
Mostly like for me, I look at it in the media, like they don't make movies anymore where it's traditional. Every woman's
if you notice, they're not really making movies to go see at a theater. Remember people used to get their news in a theater. We used to watch movies in a theater. Now everybody's streaming stuff. So depending on what they're streaming, that's what they're that's the
algorithm ends up getting it as well. But that's the scary thing. But to me, that's it. Like they don't make. I mean, there is still like the Hallmark Channel and things like that, where it is more of a traditional base. That
cheese. Oh my gosh.
Right. But at least that's more traditional. Like the media now, like I was, saying, like every woman's a fighter, a badass, a boss bitch, like all these things to where the men are just becoming the weak part of that. So how are we going to make, protectors and providers when they don't show you that anymore. They don't show men to be that, or at least on the surface. You look at a thing like the last year, the biggest movie that came out last year was Maverick. It was like super duper manly, and it was about flying airplanes and blowing shit up. So is the media getting it wrong? Are we looking for that again? I'd almost tell you yes. The people want to see that kind of thing again. They don't want to be pumped full of this stuff that's not tradition to them. And I think that you're going to see a lot of it with these failing movies that are coming out, because now people don't want to take their children to go see. People don't even want to watch Disney shit anymore because they're pushing agendas. So they're not even traditional anymore. So
I remember when I was younger thinking, every girl is a princess, and I didn't fit into that category. I was such a tomboy when I was younger. And I think and these fuckers lied to me. Like you're not supposed to be like that. And you're not, like, your value, isn't that only if you act a certain way. Like you could be yourself and it was okay. And I really had a hard time at one point. And I remember thinking, if I had never seen a Disney movie, how different could life have been for me? And I didn't put all those out there for my daughter to watch. I mean, she could because of my mom, but I'm like, I'm not pushing that on you. You do what you got to do.
No, but those are traditional values, though, that I see.
No, but they're not. Women needing to be saved. That's a little bit on the opposite end of the spectrum.
I'll play devil's
advocate. Going to fix you.
I'll play devil's advocate to that. When most women need something done around the house, who do they call?
A man.
There's a broken window in the middle of the night. Who's going to see who's there? Is she going to go do it?
I would.
I'm not talking about you.
Not.
we're playing the odds. When something's wrong with the car and she brings it home, does she look under the hood, or does she tell the man of the house to go look under it? So those traditional values are real. We just don't want to see that shit. When that's like saying the same thing with like not being armed. When don't arm anybody, but when some shit goes down, who do you call? The guy who's got the gun, the policeman. So it's the same difference where that women want to say that they don't need a man, or that's not the stereotypical thing. But every time that you need something done, you ask a man to do it. So it's not that you should force it down people's throats, but it's not that it's not true. There's a balance to that, and that's traditional values. The man of the house should go do that shit. Yeah. He should be the guy that gets up in the middle of the night and is protecting his family. I'm not trying to argue the fact of that, but I'm trying to say that part of that is reality. Is it you know, the princess and the prince is just a nonsensical way of saying boyfriend and girlfriend. They did it because that's how you sensationalize something. Disney turned into rom-coms when you get older, because a rom-com is the same shit. It's, you know, fall in love with somebody, something bad happens, something has to fix it, to find out, or, you know, this love, get to where you're going. I just think that those are traditional values. They're just built in. I'm not saying that every girl has to be a fucking princess.
But I was looking more at how we had to be as women, like that the man was supposed to do everything for us. No, he's not. That we're weak. No, we're not. There's, you know, there were definite things that I got out of those movies that are not true, that when I finally woke up and realized it, I'm like, those guys sold me a bill of goods. Like they did.
But they didn't.
And I remember being pissed. But they did. Because I'm talking about how a woman is supposed to be, you know, and like that they're supposed to be weak, that they need to be saved. No, they don't. They don't. And they're not.
I'd argue that. I'll give you the reality of
I have a cousin that'll take 75-pound solar panels and go up a ladder with one freaking hand, and she's a female.
But what's the average of that? The average is not that. It's like
I think the average is higher than you think it is, because men aren't in the homes. Women have to do that. You look at all these DIY things. It's women using the saws. It's women carrying stuff.
Yeah, but,
you know,
but most of that the DIY is bullshit. Most of those people are calling contractors to put shit on their roof, and you know who the contractors generally are? Men. So it's like Mulan.
But they're not all. A lot of women are doing their own stuff. I have cousins that I'm like impressed at the things like doing.
I'm not saying that some don't. But
it's a good majority, because men are not in the house.
No, they just wait for the man to get home and put a new outlet in.
Rob, we did a podcast on men not being in the home. Dads are not there. So women have to do that. Yes.
But I'm talking about within the traditional family, it's still more of that. And I'm not saying that it's, again, I think it's less than you think. Well, I bet you the majority of people are still calling people to fix shit.
I don't know. I have a lot of girlfriends, and I cannot believe the shit they're pulling off. I'm impressed, because I'm not at that level, and they're doing it themselves. They're not. There's nobody to call.
Well, a lot of it's YouTubing now too. Yeah. Now you want to do something in your house, just YouTube it, because it's there. Mm-hmm. I learned how to change a window thing in my son's car off of YouTube. We ordered the part, and I did it. So there is something to that. So I think that this is definitely, we'll probably have to hit this subject again, because it's definitely, you know, we're obviously going to fight for our sides. So as a man, I'll tell you,
not really, because I do believe that we need to start putting more value into family, and also into men as a whole, as women.
Yeah, I definitely need to. No, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So we agree on that.
For sure. And I think you should put value in women for what you're looking for. There's value in that. There is value for the woman who does laundry and cooks dinner and does the more traditional things. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've just been single too long. So I don't think that I need that kind of thing. But in a traditional thing, there is something good about that. Trust me, when I was married, she did the laundry. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. So there is something in that. And it was nice to come home and I didn't have to fucking fold laundry. It was already done.
Right.
Like don't get me wrong. Like I'm not going to argue that fact. I'm not going to say that, I'm independent man. I don't need that, or I didn't want that. I just think that I've been single so long that I would probably say I didn't need it. But if I got in a relationship where she did the fucking laundry, I'm definitely going to make sure that I do whatever she's looking for I'll be out on there, cutting the grass. because those are, and it's not just a social construct. Those are things that maybe she doesn't like doing the fucking lawn and like, you know, and doesn't mind doing the laundry
together. You have to, as a couple, work together, and you can't do everything together. Sometimes you have to do it separately together. And
well, to get it done, to go do something fun.
Exactly.
Right? You know,
you only get 2 days on the weekend.
Right. I'll go bust out the lawn real quick, and then you do this shit so we can meet in the middle and we can go, you know, do whatever the fun thing is.
Let's get the hell out of here. Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, I guess we'll leave it on that. And, you know, we'll come back to traditionalism another time. And besides that, make sure to check us out on social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram. Make sure to check us out on Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all kinds of those cool places where you hear podcasts. And this is an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. Keep coming back and listen to the two of us throw our positions at each other. Tina, as always, it's super duper fun. Love you much. And
have a good one.
And we'll see you next Wednesday.